does not work. You know, sometimes, and people gonna think I'm meddling now, but I'm not. You ever see people that don't get along in the church? And you say, I ain't gonna even say nothing to them. They don't say nothing to me, I ain't gonna say nothing to them. And then you get back there and sing, oh, how I love Jesus. And the question was asked, how can you love me whom you have never seen and hate your brother that you see every day? How can you say that you love me? So this is where we are with understanding that if we want to move forward, does not necessarily mean you're going to get to the top of the mountain. But if you're at the base of the mountain, do your part, and God can bless you still. Now, I know for myself, as a song leader, I could not make it. So I would say, well, Brother Jackson, you can just talk. You all right. We love to hear you talk. But if I had to lead a song, you know what? Brother Jackson would get up there and do the best that he could. Not because I have this singing voice, but God gives me the ability to do what I can with what I have. And if we learn to do that, then God will bless us no matter what. And as I looked at this story, we can find that sometimes we lose completely the path that we were on to reach those greater heights. I often look at how Saul of Tarsus, when he realized that God was the one that he should be serving, he made some very powerful statements in his life. When he was arrested, he spoke up for God. And he even made the statement, he said, if I have to die for this, he said, I'm ready to die. I'm not afraid to die for what I believe. When he was on the road, on the ship, on his way to see Caesar, because he had been arrested, and he said, I appeal to Caesar, and the storm broke out. That story moves me more each time that I read it. Because the storm broke out, and Paul had already informed the people we should stay here because the weather's not looking good. But the captain thought, well, I can handle it. But when the storm broke out, and they were out on the sea, everybody was in panic except Paul. And you know what he did? He said, last night an angel of God, whom I serve, said, not a soul shall be lost. Except you do what? Abide in the ship. You cannot be saved. In other words, stay on this boat or this ship, whatever you want to call it. Stay on it. And God will see us ashore. Now, this is the beauty of that. They came to a part of the sea where it divided. And the ship ran aground and wrecked itself, and the back end was in the water, and it broke off from the power of the waves. But Paul made people just catch on to a piece of the ship. If you can swim, swim. But they stayed on the ship. This is the key. Sometimes in life, things happen, and we have to stay in the ship, even though things don't look good. Have you ever had those Sunday mornings where you don't feel like coming at all? And you say, I just don't have it in me today. I'll go next week. And you never think about, well, who promised you to be here next week? You know, I think about, as I get older, I think about that more and more, because there's no promise that I'm going to be tomorrow. But the beauty behind this is understanding that sometimes it does not mean that you have to make a change in your life. Just stay on the ship. It was James who said this, and I often go to James. He said, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. That means the various trials that you're going through. Knowing that the trying of your faith does what? Worketh patience. You know, every now and again, when you go through something and you ask the Lord, give me strength. I like to say this because people need to understand that the Lord just don't go to the strength closet and bundle up a bundle of it and throw it down to you. He's going to send you something to be strong about. Sometimes, in order to get to where you're going, you got to go through some stuff and hurt for a while. You got to crawl every now and then. You got to suffer some loss every now and then. You got to hurt every now and then. You even got to shed some tears every now and then. Sometimes the best way to help you is send you through some stuff so that when you make it through, you understand I could not have made it had it not been for God's blessing. You come out, you're stronger and you're wiser. And you know now that when I go through something, God brought me out of that, he can bring me out of this. And sometimes it may not come when you want it to come. You know, every now and again, when I was younger, I used to think you could pray to God because you were a Christian and say, Lord, I need so and so and so, and you sit and wait for it to come. And it didn't come, then you'd be disappointed. But you know something? This is what I've learned. When I was seasoned well enough, that's when I began to see the blessing of God, because my wife and I don't know why she stayed with me, but the first car we got was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my whole life. When I asked the guy, how much do you want for it? He said, what will you get me? So I knew it was a bad car then. And I should have said 500, but I said 600. He said, sold. On the driver's side, there was no floor. There was a piece of plywood. So when it rained, and we went through a puddle, had to hold your feet up, and it would run all the way to the back of the car. And when I drove it to church, I would park it down on 14th Street and get a walk up. We didn't even put it in the car lot. But when I got to the place where I could put that car in the lot and look back at it and say, that's my baby, that's when we got a better car. We didn't have no power steering. We go to places where they park your car, and they would tell us, y'all can park it over there. And we were into weightlifting then, so it would look like we had power steering because we'd been lifting weights, so we could and whoop it in. But the first time the guy parked our car, he got out and he was going like this. And from that point on, he didn't park our car. He said, y'all can put it right over there. But I learned something. Because in the wintertime, people that were waiting on the bus would see us coming, wave us down because they had a good heater in the car. And we would stop and give them a ride. I began to appreciate what I had. And when I learned to appreciate what I had, God blessed me to get something better. And I thank God that sometimes don't change the direction that God is leading you, because it's for your good. It may not feel good at the time you're going through it, but just ask God to give you the strength. Because Paul went to prison. He was beaten. And the thing that impresses me more, he said himself, he said, I'm in jail. He He said, now there are those that are preaching because it's necessary because I'm locked up. He said, there are those that are preaching because they have no choice, because they get called on and they have to preach. He said, but then there are those that are preaching who don't like me. And so they are taking advantage of the time that I'm locked up to say things that might make me look bad. But he said, there's one thing I see. He said, the word of God is still being preached. He said, I'm thankful for that. And so sometimes, as the people of God, don't look at your journey as one that's filled with roses all the time. You're going to have some setbacks and setups. You're going to go through some things that rub you the wrong way. And there are times you go through things in life that make you sit up late at night. And you're the only one sitting up, and you hear the cars going down the street. And the only noise you hear is the tick-tock of the clock on the wall. And you're sitting there, oh, woe is me. But you know something? It is during those times that if we learn to look at where God is leading us, he might take you to the top, but he puts you at the base of the mountain. And that's good enough. Every one of us have gone through something in our lives that turned us every which way but loose, so we thought. But now that we look back on it, you say, well, it really wasn't that bad. I thank God that I was able to make it through. Now, Saul, who's anointed king, lost the kingship. But Saul of Tarsus became a front runner for Jesus Christ. He lived his life in such a way that at the point of his death, where he knew that he would not be free anymore, he said, I have fought a what? A good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but to all of them also that love his appearing. And so what I want us to get from this lesson is to understand that sometimes in order to get to where you're going, you've got to go through some stuff. Nobody is going to make it to heaven like you're in Club Med. Not going to happen. You know, sometimes people forget that, you know, and I heard a brother say this, and it helped me so much. He said, sometimes we say, get on the old ship of Zion. He said, but don't think it's a vacation ship. He said, it's a battleship. He said, we got guns everywhere on there. So when you get on the old ship of Zion, recognize that we have all kind of cannons on there. And if we learn to use the cannons, regardless of what comes our way, God is going to see us through because we stay on the ship. If you learn to just stay on the ship, God will bless you, yes.
You know, Brother Jackson, the elders used to say, there's a price on these pearls. And Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. And so there's a price. It costs to be a Christian. And you really have to, you're not going to understand your redemption if you don't understand that it costs to be a Christian.
That's right.
And I was thinking when you said about roses, because I'm a rose keeper, and I enjoy their beauty, but some of them have some terrible thorns.
Yeah.
But that's the price of enjoying the beauty of those roses. The thorns go with it.
That's right.
And so you just have to understand your position as a child of God. Like you say, it's not a cruise ship, it's a battleship. But it's also the life that you chose.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, just in you saying that, I used to think everything would be coming up roses because I was a Christian. You know, I learned, you know, as a Christian, I had to learn the hard way that regardless of who you are, you're going to have enemies.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when I was in high school and in grade school, there was guys that didn't like me. And I was comedy relief when I got on the bus because everybody that didn't like me gave me a hard time. And one of the things that I used to have to deal with almost every day is my first name is R.C. I mean, that's my name. They said, what does it stand for? And I said, it doesn't stand for anything. They said, oh, your parents must have thought you wasn't going to be too bright. So they just gave you 2 letters. And people would laugh. They would laugh so hard. And then other guys would grab me by the head and they start pulling my head up like that. And the guy said, what you doing? He said, I'm trying to get this top off the soda. Because there was an RC Cola back in the day. And I'd be sitting there going, ow, ow, you know. But I learned something. As I got older and put on a little size, I found that I really didn't have to fight because I had learned some things about being a Christian. And so I gained a lot of respect from the very guys that did not like me. And when we were in high school, I think one of the greatest compliments I ever got was the last day of school, and we were all in homeroom just talking. One of the guys came to me and he said, you know what, man? I said, what? He said, you gonna make it. I said, what do you mean? He said, you cool, brother. I said, I am. And I've never been cool. You know, I never knew what cool was because I've never been cool. And he said, you're gonna make it, man. And I sat there and from him, I never thought that would come from him. But the thing that he saw in me, he and his other friends wanted because they saw us hanging out with our dads, playing baseball on Saturday, or going fishing or hunting. He said, I see y'all all the time. He said, man, I wish I was like y'all. And very, very, I think it was about 2 weeks after, that very guy that told me I was gonna make it was killed in a shootout with the police. And I thought, how sad it is for him to say that to me and he's gone now. I said, but those are the kind of things I learned. When they wanted to go places that I knew my dad did not want me to go, I said, I'm not going. I used to think my dad had x-ray vision because he could see and hear everything. And he was the kind of man that if you told him you were going to do something, well, I'm going to this movie house on so-and-so street, don't be surprised if you're sitting in the movie and then the speaker comes on and say, well, R.C., Gail, or whatever friends you were with, come to the front, your father wants to see you. And we would walk out, and he said, okay, and he'd turn around and walk out. So I used to tell guys, I'm not going no further than right here. I don't know when that dude's gonna come around. But he did that, and now that I am older, I am so glad that he did it because it kept me out of a lot of stuff. And what I want us to see this morning is that as we face this new time with new minister and everything, he said it himself, there's going to be some rough days. There are going to be some ups and downs, and it's going to take us time to get some of these things that we want in place. He said, but if we let the Lord lead us and we stay strong, he's going to get us there. It may take us 5 years, but if we hang on, God will get us there in spite of everything that we've gone through. So when we go out to get new members or get people that we want to be new members, tell them about how good God has been and what God can do in your life, and whatever your talent, he can take that and make it something wonderful because we can use it in God's kingdom. I'm often reminded of how dedicated Paul was when he made the statement, I believe God, that it will be even as it was told to me. Sometimes take a lesson from those who were before you Because as good as Moses was, he still made mistakes. And so we need to recognize we may make some mistakes along the way, but they don't have to break us. We can become wiser because of the mistake and use it in such a way that the church will be blessed. And I often think of myself in terms of, I like to think of myself as someone that is constantly trying to learn something new. I don't want to get to a point where I say I know enough. I don't know enough. I'm still trying to grow and get to where I can be even more of a help in the Lord's kingdom. May not get to where somebody else is, but as long as I'm trying to get there, God will bless me to reach a point in life where I can be an asset rather than a detriment. We are all important in here. We all have a talent. We all have a gift. Sometimes your gift may not be my gift. Sometimes your gift might be what we need more of up here than Brother Jackson. And I have the mindset, if I'm not good enough for it, don't put me there. Because I want the best put forward in the Lord's church. That's how dedicated I am to doing those things that will be pleasing in God's sight. So Saul, who was anointed king, lost it. But Saul of Tarsus became someone that we can look at and say, I want to be like him. I want to have that kind of faith. Paul had his thorn in the flesh, but he didn't let it break him. He said, I went to the Lord 3 times and asked him to remove it. But the Lord said, my grace is what? It's sufficient for thee. He said, for my strength is made perfect where? In weakness. In other words, don't worry about the thorn. I'm on your side. Deal with it. Sometimes we want things taken away. We need to ask God, help me learn how to live with it. Because I used to say, take it, Lord. Don't want to deal with that. But because I have learned how to deal with some things, I'm still here. There are times that I don't know about you, but there are times that I've come in this building and been fighting back tears because I'm going through so much. But then, God has a remedy. For every cut, there is an adhesive that covers the wound. I come in here, and my sister over here remembers that sermon. Some strange advice. I needed to hear it that day because I was at the breaking point. Because I was at the point that, man, if somebody messes with me today, I'm just going to hook off. You ever get there? Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. That type of attitude. Yeah, you get there. But when I heard the sermon, some strange advice, that brother brought out some things that I hadn't even thought about. He said, if you're going through something, maybe God is trying to make you stronger for something else. So there is a blessing even in the times that we fall and go through some things in life. And I wanted to bring these 2 men with the same name and both went in different directions. One became a front runner and the other one failed. So as a Christian, recognize that because you go through something does not mean it's the end of you. It might be the making of you. You're a lot smarter when you go through something, don't you? I know that I do. You do something once and it don't feel good, you say, I'm not going to do that one no more. Because you know how it feels. So as a Christian, recognize that life is not Club Med. Everything is not going to go fine. As a Christian, you're going to go through some ups and downs. Sometimes they're going to break you all the way down. And it'll make you think about going somewhere else or not going anywhere at all. But if you learn to just stay on the ship, God's blessings will be on you. Sometimes and I want to close with this because I look at the time is getting away. Sometimes people want too much too soon. You ever see that? And then we have more. Well, I'm going to say faith. You have more faith in the money than you have in God. You know, I look at the things that are happening in our world today, and it's enough to make you wonder what's going to happen in this world because of how things are going. The dollar is in trouble. All these things are happening. And, you know, I say to my wife all the time that God knows how far to let things go before he say that's enough. That's what I hold on to. Because when you look at the things that are happening in the world, people that you thought would be around for a while are already gone. And people are dying every day. And these are people that you thought would be okay. But what bothers me more is that when a Christian falls and not saved or in that saved condition, it bothers me to no end. Because he's leaving one terrible state to go into another terrible state. But when I look at how the Bible tells us that we have a great cloud of witnesses that have gone through things that we're just now beginning to experience as far as trouble all the time. When the children of Israel were in Egypt, they prayed to get out. They wanted to be free. It took a long time for them to finally be free. And those who died, there were some that even though they died and did not see that promise come to fruition, they still believed that it was going to come. Christians need to recognize, hold on to God no matter what. Lose your house, that's tough. Lose your car, that's tough. No reason to turn your back on God. Hold on to God's unchanging hand. And just like Moses and all of the great men before us went through some things in their lives, they finally reached a point where they left Egypt. And when they left in good fashion. They were able to walk out and God led them through the wilderness. That's how good God is. So let's not get to a point where we turn our backs on God completely, because God is good. And you may come through tattered and torn, but if you come through, it's still a blessing. That's how good God is. We got about, maybe 8 minutes, and I'm going to stop right there. And so we need to recognize that I hope I've said something, that we can go in any direction, but the right direction is always in God's path, and he will lead us the right way. Thank you very much.